Hi, welcome to Control and Compound with Darren Mitchell. I'm your host, Darren Mitchell, and joining me today is Christina Wyatt, a wealth coach at Control and Compound Financial. Hi, Christina.
Hey, Darren. How you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic. Big topic today, debunking the RRSP myths. And we're going to dig into it and just really kind of look at some of the things that people don't think about or don't find out about until they're retired. So where do you want to start, Christina? Where are we going to begin this journey?
Yeah, I'm excited to be Mythbusters today, Darren. This one's going to be fun. I do find, with people using RSPs, they're not taking the time to learn the ins and outs. Something you do, if you're learning the infinite banking strategy, you're going to learn everything inside and out and know all of the pros and cons and everything about it. Whereas with the RSPs, people just quickly go sign up, put their money in here and wait until they're ready to take it out. So super excited to talk about some of those myths that people just don't ask questions about. And I think that the very first one we should be talking about is the tax myth, right? So a lot of people think that when they put money into these RSPs, they're getting a tax deduction and they're not going to have to pay these taxes down the road. But in reality, these are tax deferrals. They are not tax deductions. So I think we should definitely start there. That's our biggest myth by far, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, how many times have you heard people say it's like, oh, I got to put money into RSPs to save tax because they truly believe they're saving tax when in fact you're deferring tax because you still have to pay tax when you take the money out. You're just deferring when you want to do that. So I think we did another podcast where we kind of broke down a TFSA versus an RSP. Let's just use a real simple example of that of TFSA or tax-free money and pretend the guy's in a 30% tax bracket. So you don't need to follow along the screen here. We're going to break it down really simple. If you have $100 of income and you say, great, I'm going to put that $100, and you can add 2, 3, 4 zeros to it, but you have $100 and you say, I'm going to put it in an RSP. Okay, let's look at the tax deferral or tax savings. Let's say you're in a 30% tax bracket. Well, if you didn't put money in the RSPs, you'd only have $70. So people will go, oh, great, I can put full 100 in the RSPs. Okay, so let's say you put the 100 in the RSPs and person B said, no, I'm going to pay the 30% tax and I'm going to take $70 and invest in my TFSA or some other tax-free spot. So fast forward 10 years. So we're going to assume a 7% return. Your money doubles in 10 years roughly. So what do you have in your RSP? Your 100 turns into 200. Your TFSA, your 70 turns into 140. Well, I don't know. 200 seems like 140, seems like a good deal. RSP should be the winner. But then it's that missing piece. What about when you take that money out? And when you go to take that $200 out of your RSPs, let's assume you're still on a 30% tax bracket. Now you have $140 in your pocket. You've got 140 in your TFSA. You go to take that out. You have 140 in your pocket. So really, you're no better off, assuming that same tax bracket. $100 or $70 grows for 10 years. At the end of the day, you're still netting $140 to yourself personally. So it's not a tax savings, it's a tax deferral.
Yeah, so in the example that you gave there, the tax rate stays the same. So a lot of the time when people are talking about RSPs and I'm going to call it a myth because I don't see it happen very often. The whole strategy is that you're going to be in a lower tax bracket when you take the money out. So you put it in a high tax bracket, you take it out in a low tax bracket. That is the strategy. Now, in my mind, I cannot fathom taxes going down before I retire. Like taxes overall going down. I can't see it. I don't know if you think they are, then maybe the strategy works for you. But in my mind, taxes are not going down. And then the other side of it is, Darren, how many people in retirement do you know that actually want to be in a lower tax bracket when they retire?
Yeah, I couldn't imagine talking to, someone in their 30s or 40s that's an entrepreneur, a real estate investor, has a successful career, and to say, hey, wouldn't it be cool is when you retire, you're poorer than you are today in a lower tax bracket? Wouldn't that be cool? And you talk about future tax increases. I'm sorry, if you're listening to this podcast and you think with the provincial and federal governments are both going to lower your income taxes over the next 10 or 20 years, you're probably not listening to the right podcast, because anyone that we talk to, no one really believes government with government spending what it's been, we're going to see lower taxes. So that's just assuming your income stays the same. And then, yeah, the second part you mentioned, do you really want your income to drop substantially in retirement? Hey, you're making 200 grand a year now. Good news in retirement. I can get you down to 20 grand a year. That doesn't sound appealing.
No, not to me either. I'm not making that as my goal at the end of the day. So I think that the important thing to do is, which a lot of people miss, is that you need to plan for your spending now. So a lot of people on their way to retirement, we call it going up retirement mountain, working their way up. They're very focused on accumulating. So accumulating their funds, making sure that they're there for retirement, looking for that overall number that they're accumulating. What they're not thinking about is how they're going to spend those funds in retirement. Right? And your spending plan is just as important, because how you're spending these funds is going to look at how you're going to be taxed, right? Which makes a big difference in your overall spending. So something that needs to be looked at, and I want to talk about today, is taking the money out at the end of the day and thinking about it now instead of waiting until you're 65, 70, 71 to go take it out and then worrying about it. Let's chat about the actual taking out of the RSP and what that looks like when you're ready to start spending in retirement.
Yeah, great point, Christina. Like it amazes me when people, contact us in their like 60s or mid late 60s, 70, and they're like, okay, I'm ready to retire now. Now what? And it's like, really? You've had 30 or 40 years of building this retirement program, and you haven't thought about what happens when you actually retire? Because that's, people are chasing that number. I want 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, whatever it is, your number is. But they don't think about what happens when you go to take that out. And, with money, when you're coming down the retirement mountain in our analogy, and you start distributing that money, there's only two things you can do with your money. That's it. We can complicate this all we want with all kinds of financial calculators and all this stuff people use. There's two things you can do with your money. You can spend it, or you can give it away. Now, you can give it away in life, or you can give it away in death, but that's it. I can't think of anything else you can do with your money. Spend it or give it away. You can give it to charity, you can give it to your family, you can give it to whoever you want, but that's it. So let's look at the spending part first. So let's say you have $1 million of RSPs. Woohoo, great. You did a great job. You saved, put all your money in there for a bunch of years. You let it grow. Now you've got $1 million. Well, people get all excited. Oh, great, I have $1 million. But then you ask the question, or they ask the question, well, how much can I spend every year and not run out of money? And that's the question you should be asking in your 20s and 30s, not at 65 and 70. So there's different formulas and stuff, but if you just Google safe distribution rate or Monte Carlo simulation, Monte Carlo is where they run 1,000 different simulations, and they say, okay, what's a reasonable percentage you can take your money out and have it last through your lifetime in retirement? And that, used to be around 4%. Now it's closer to 3.5%, may go slightly back up with higher interest rates. But really think of that. You got $1 million, and your income's going to be somewhere around 30 or 40,000 if you don't want your money to run out. Now, eventually you're going to get to a point where the government's going to require you to take out more than your safe distribution limit. So then you run into the challenge of, am I going to run out of money? But if you're making, if you have $1 million and you're only going to live off 30 or 40 grand from your RSPs, that doesn't sound like a lot. So, picture if you're making $100,000 a year and you're getting, 3% raises every year. Well, if you don't retire for 20 or 30 years, let's say you're making $180,000 a year by the time you retire. If you wanted to replace your whole income with that RSP method, how much money, Christina, would you need to have, in your RSP to produce $180,000 a year? I don't want to put you on the spot with this 3 or 4% math, but what would we need in RSPs to pump out $180,000 a year, which represents our future income when we retire in 20 or 30 years? Any ballpark idea?
It's up there in the millions, right? It's not a million, which a lot of people think is their retirement number. You got like 5, 6, 7, 8 million is what you're going to need to be able to do that at that point in time, for
Yeah,
sure.
like think of that. Like if you have $5 million and you can get 4% on that, that's about 200 grand. 3% is 150. So if we're at 3.5 to replace that 180, yeah. Do you really think it's realistic to say, oh, I can replace my income in retirement with RSPs, making 100 now, I'll be making 180 by the time I retire. I just need $5 million in my RSPs.
Well, and think of it if they put the taxes up. If taxes are up, you're going to need more than the 5 million. You're going to need the 6, 7, or the 8, right? It really depends on what the tax bracket is the day you go to retire. You're kind of putting it in the government's hands at that point in time. Thanks for listening so far. I'd like to take a moment to remind everyone to subscribe to the podcast and leave a rating on your favorite podcast platform. Hit the button on YouTube, and more importantly, if you're finding value from this content, reach out to us on our website, controlandcompound.com.
Yeah, and I mean, we didn't get into all the hidden taxes we talk about in other podcasts. Like, what about your clawbacks and stuff? Trust me, if you have a $5 million or even $1 million RSP portfolios, CRA is going to say you're rich. You don't need all these other benefits that other people are eligible for. You know, old age security, old age credit, long-term nursing care, supplementation, all that stuff. So that's if you go to spend it. Okay, so there's only two things we can do with our money. It's not a good vehicle for spending. Okay, well, what about the other way? Give it away. Well, most people aren't giving it away in their lifetime, but if they do, it's fully taxable. Realistically, what happens? Most RSPs, if there's a spouse, if there's a husband and wife or two spouses, the spouse that dies, everything transfers to the other spouse or partner completely tax free. Great, tax free, no big deal. But eventually, you're both going to die, or eventually you're going to be single and then die. And what happens then? Well, now you're $1 million. Like, people don't get this. If let's say your last year you make $100,000 of income in the year you die, and you have $1 million in RSPs. Well, according to CRA, you effectively cashed out your $1 million RSP the day you died. So your income is going to show $1.1 million on your terminal tax return. So on a $1.1 million income, in every province, you're ballpark 50% plus tax bracket. So your $1 million is really 500,000 or less at death. So think of that. Half your money is going to CRA, and we've had some tragic stories of clients realizing this, probably too late. Christina?
Yeah, for sure. So I another myth in this, and that I hear people say all the time, is I've named my kids as the beneficiary, so no problem. It's just going to go straight to them. It's going to bypass probate. It's going to go straight to them because I've named them as a beneficiary. And that is a myth, a huge myth. And Darren, I know you've had the conversations. I've had the conversations with clients where you have to sit down and you have to fully explain to them that naming them as a beneficiary doesn't mean that those taxes don't have to be paid. You're still paying those taxes out. They're going to receive those checks as a beneficiary after the taxes have been paid. So, in your example with that $1 million, I don't know if you want to tell the story of sitting down and having to have that conversation. It's a tough one to have. It's not fun. And I hate that we have to wait until people in retirement doing their estate plans to have it. It's not fun.
Yeah, the story I think you're referring to, it was a new client, so we hadn't been working with this person before, and he wasn't married at the time, but he had 4 kids, so he had $1 million in his RSPs, and he had a bunch of other money, but he goes, well, I'm going to leave the RSPs to the kids. That'd be great. I got 4 kids, $250,000 each. That'll give them a start certainly. And I had to break it to him. I'm like, well, really, you're leaving most of it to CRA? And he's like, what? And for him, it was like it was a 54% tax bracket, but even 50. I go, well, of the $1 million, half of it's going to go to CRA. They're going to be your biggest beneficiary of your estate. Okay. And the other $500,000 we can distribute to your 4 children. So each of your kids get $125,000, but CRA gets $500,000. Now, was that the plan when you started doing RSPs in your 20s and 30s, that you would say, all right, well, I'll give my kids 125 and CRA 500,000 at death? It's not, when people think about it, they're like, oh my God, but then they think about, well, I guess that's what happens. But to your point, Christina, people don't think about it until they're retired. Then it's like, crap. Well, what do I do now? Well, you can go back, get in your time machine, go back 30 years and start planning with the end in mind, right? For me, that's the key. People are not planning with the end goal. And if the end goal is to spend your money in retirement, shouldn't you be looking at how much can I spend in retirement when you're building this plan over that 30 years?
Yeah, it's adding the spending plans in now, adding the estate plan in now. Going to do your estate plan at 75 is not a good idea. Like you don't have time. You don't have the time to put the right things in place. The same thing goes with your retirement spending. The sooner you take a look at it, the sooner you do your research and you learn. Like that's huge. That's why we wanted to do this podcast. Is it's just a lot of the time with RSPs, it's just, I don't know, it's a traditional way of doing it. Your mom did it, your dad did it, your grandparents did it. So it's like, must be right. If they did it, it's got to be right. I don't need to take the time to learn about it. My mom's financial advisor that worked with her and my, dad, that they all said that that's what we're supposed to do. So people follow it blindly almost. I almost think people follow RSPs blindly without learning a little bit more about it. And that's why it's so important to put these things into your plan as soon as you can. Right now is the time to do it. If you can start talking and thinking about it, do your estate plan, do your spending plan, do it all now.
Yeah, absolutely. So I love it. We talked about the RRSP tax savings myth. We talked about, will you really be in a lower tax bracket in retirement, and is that your goal? How much money do you really need to put in RRSPs? RSP being not a great distribution tool, whether you're going to spend it or give it away, and that's all you can do. What else did you want to cover today, Christina? What else are some of the things that come up that people just really aren't aware of when it comes to RSPs?
We missed one of the biggest ones for me, and that is control. Not having control of your money inside of an RRSP, right? We don't have access to it. We've got to leave it there. You put it in there and you leave it there until the day you retire. So what happens when, the deal of a lifetime happens? What happens when a real estate opportunity comes your way? What happens when you want to open a business? You want to invest in a business? You don't have access to that. And not having access to your money will lose you more money in the long run than having those 6% returns. You're going to get in that RSP 6, 8, I don't know, whatever you're going to be told is your average rate of return. The returns you will lose from not having access to your money will outweigh by a million, right? Because if you don't have access, you can't take advantage of it. If you can't take advantage of it, you can't do it. And if you can't do it, you're not going to get the returns from those deals that come up. And that's why it's so important. We talk about it all the time, is to be in control of your money. And I think it's really important. RSPs are okay for some people, but when you're talking to a business owner, you're talking to a real estate investor starting out or has been, they know full well that they can't lock their money up. They can't do it, because how are they going to take advantage of all these things that they need to be able to grow their wealth and grow their businesses, grow their real estate portfolios? If your money's locked up and you don't have control, you're not going to be able to do that. And that's something the RSP does take away. Like last myth to bust, you are not in control of your money when your money's in an RSP. There's no control there.
Yeah, great point, Christina. That control is, it's in our name, right? Control and compound. That's how strongly we feel about it. It's the first word of the name of our business. Like the people we work with, except if you want to be wealthy, and not just people we work with, but rich people. If you look at how they become wealthy, typically it's because they invested in themselves, they started a business, and they invested in real estate. Now, can the RRSP do any of that stuff? Well, not really, right? You're not going to cash out your RRSPs for a down payment. You're not going to cash out your RRSPs to start a business. You're probably not going to cash out your RRSPs when there's a great opportunity. And your point on there, Christina, when the great opportunities occur, it's usually when the real estate market's down and the stock market's down. So you're really going to go into the stock market today and say, well, my RRSP's down 30% this year, but I'm going to cash it out to take advantage of something that's a good deal. Probably not. You're not going to cash out at that lower point. So it goes back to that control point, that if you want to be wealthy, you've got to be in control of your money so you can take advantage of opportunities, deal with emergencies, invest in yourself, business, and real estate. So I guess to sum it up, Christina, what we're really trying to say is, don't wait until you're 71 to figure out how RRSPs work. And we're not saying RRSPs are evil and no one should do RRSPs. They're fine for some people, right? if you're got a 9 to 5 job and you're a T4 person and you don't want to be in real estate and you don't want to start a business and you don't want to take advantage of opportunities, you just want to, follow the herd, what everyone else is doing, throw money in RSPs, cross your fingers, hope it works, that's fine. But for the people that want to have access to their money, want to be in control, and want to be, frankly, wealthy, I don't have any clients in retirement that are wealthy going, damn, I wish I had more RSPs that I could pay tax on when I take that money out. They're always calling going, do I have to take money out of this RSP? And it's like, well, yeah, you do. CRA has rules saying you have to take so much out a year. So don't wait till 71. Figure out how the RSPs work today and bust those RSP myths. Thanks for joining. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a great day. Thanks for tuning into this episode. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell button so you always know when new content is coming out. For more helpful tips and tricks, visit our Instagram, Facebook, or TikTok pages at Control and Compound. If you want to reach out to us directly or work with us, visit our website at controlandcompound.com. The links are in the show notes below. See you next episode.